there's good lazy and bad lazy. It's like good and bad fats. So the bad kind, which I would love to get over, but I never have, is basically resistance, like fear dressed in pajamas, where I just don't want to do the things that I have to do that involve risk, that are scary to me, like writing something where I don't know where it's going to start. And then the good kind of lazy is the ability to relax, to have free time. I love free time. A lot of people, especially women, are terrified not to be super busy. Like they feel ashamed of themselves if their calendar isn't crammed. And I feel the opposite. So I tend not to measure my self-worth in how hard I work. It's just not a measure for me. And I actually feel a little ashamed or embarrassed if I don't have a lot of free time.
This is the Goal Digger Podcast.
Welcome to the Goal Digger Podcast, Laura. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Jenna, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So let's start off with a heavy hitter. You have become this self-proclaimed late bloomer when it comes to your business, especially in your new book's intro chapter. Like you just kick it off and say, Hey guys, I'm a late bloomer. Can you talk to me a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today?
So my journey starts after college when everybody, all my friends are going into the workforce, and like I know you, Jenna, had power suit dreams when you when you started out, and I had the opposite. When my friends were going to jobs in like law firms, becoming paralegals, things like that, ready to climb the corporate ladder. And my biggest fear was going to work somewhere where I would have to wear pantyhose, which you had to wear back then, or shoulder pads, or any of those things, or get anywhere at 9 a.m. Because I'm not just a late bloomer, I'm a late sleeper. And so I spent that first year out of college, which is now a blip, but felt like the longest time, even though it went by fast, just like sort of applying for bartending jobs, sort of pounding the pavement, looking for, and looking in the classifieds, which is what you did back then, and anything that looked interesting that said like creative job. I wanted something creative or entertainment-y. So if it said creative, or if it said entertainment job or fast-paced entertainment job, what that meant was either printer sales or phone sex. And so there was really just nothing that appealed to me, and I wanted something fun that I would enjoy. And so I spent that year pretty much doing nothing except going out like it was my job. And because I was in bed at 10 or 11 a.m. one day, I was available when a friend called me and said, Hey, I'm fact checking for this author, Lisa Birnbach, who was, she was the author of the Preppy Handbook and had this college book coming out. And so my friend was like, we're fact checking it and need more fact checkers. Can you come in? I was like, you mean today? Because I had plans to go to my step aerobics class. And she was like, yes, today. So I was like, well, it sounds like it could be a cool opportunity. So I went in, and that job kind of led to everything else. And the fact that I was late sleeping and late, just loafing around at home opened me up to that opportunity. So I was very lucky. I went from there to an internship at this place called Spy Magazine. It was like the cool downtown publication at the time. And this internship, I was like, okay, maybe this is my chance to find my thing. And because I loved magazines and thought, oh, this will be creative and entertainment-y. And one of my jobs was to Xerox the gossip pack, like all the gossip pages of the newspapers every day for the editors. And I've had other admin jobs like that. But the thing they wanted from us was for us to pitch ideas and become editors there. Like it was a real opportunity. And I thought, maybe this is my shot to prove myself. But time went on, and I never came up with any ideas to pitch, no story ideas. And the managing editor took me out to lunch and told me over sushi, you can take initiative here. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling like, oh boy, when you're told you can take initiative, when you're asked to take initiative, that's the opposite of initiative. Like, it's just something I don't have. I'm not a fast mover. I'm not a quick start. I'm not one of those people who sees an opening and goes for it. And so I kind of ran out the clock on my internship without coming up with anything, but was lucky enough to be asked over to the ad side. They had a job for me. They were kind of like, we'll take her, when my internship was up. And that is where I wrote my first piece of copy. It was my first copywriting job. They assigned me something nobody on the editorial side wanted, which was an advertorial for the magazine. So advertorials are this, that page in the magazine that looks like it's part of the magazine, but it
Yes.
says promotion in tiny letters
Yes.
at the top. Yes.
Yes.
So this was for Dewar's Scotch, and I was assigned the full page. It was like, come up with a few things for this page, like short, fun things. And so I wrote an essay, ironically, an essay on adulthood while I was still living in my childhood bedroom, and then a quiz called "Do You Party Like Your Uncle Marty?" And it was to determine whether you were like a cool hipster or a geezer. And if you were a geezer, then the remedy was to drink Dewar's. And so that came out, and I had a page in the magazine, and it's like, oh, copywriting. It's writing short, fun things. And you don't have to think of big ideas. You don't have to pitch a story. You don't have to like go out with a reporter's notebook or come up with a screenplay idea. So I was like, maybe this is my path. And after that, I went to a more buttoned up magazine, which was very much not for me. And I lasted 6 months in that job because I was sort of insubordinate. I didn't write in the style that that my boss wanted me to. She wanted everything to be elegant, and she would say, "We need it to be up here," and she would wave her hand over her head, which is the sign for over my head. But she would just say, "It needs to be up here," and I couldn't make it in on time. It was a 9 to 5, and she would leave me a message every morning at 9 a.m. saying, "I guess you're not here yet." And so within 6 months, that's long story short, she fired me. And probably best thing, getting fired almost always turns out to be best thing that ever happened. Because had I been good at that job, who knows? I might have been gotten locked into a corporate life and moved up and up and up, and become a CEO or publisher, some sort of management position where you're presenting in front of a group about like demographics in Peoria. So from there, I went on to write TV promos, which was the dream job for me. A friend who had lunch with me from Spy Magazine said he was working at VH1 and his new job was writing promos. And I said, "What are those?" And he said, when you're watching the commercials, like those commercials that are for the shows, for the network. And so basically, I watch a lot of TV and then write these little things. I was like, "Oh, that's a job. I need that job." That was the job. I mean, all I ever wanted really was to get paid to watch TV.
There we go.
And yes, so he got me a meeting with the editorial director there, who had room for me to write a promo. She was like, "Yeah, we need writers. Here's a promo. Write it." And so I wrote my first promo, and then went on to write lots of promos for them, and countdown scripts for them. They had those countdown shows like Top 20 Countdown, Top 10
Yep.
Countdown. I wrote those, and I went from there to my dream place to write promos, which was Nick at Night, and then TV Land, their spinoff channel. And so I worked in promos for years and years and years. And as I said, it was absolute dream job. At first, I felt like I finally felt ambitious, like I was doing my thing. And I worked so hard, and I'm someone who I consider myself a lazy person. But I was working so hard there, like watching tapes of Mary Tyler Moore show till it got dark and people were leaving, and people would say to me, "You're still here? Why don't you go home? Take a break." And I was like, "Oh my God, people are saying this to me." Uh, but over the years, I'm someone who can tend to get complacent, and uh, eventually, after like 15 years or so, I was feeling a little itchy, squirrely to write something bigger, do something more with my voice, with my writing chops, but I didn't know what. And I probably would have stayed forever had I not been let go from my big contract. I had a 6-figure contract at the time. I was around 40, and I was let go. They let me know it was not going to be renewed, and I was devastated. But luckily, I happened to have put up a website and like my last year there, and because I was friends with Marie Forleo, who I had met in hip hop class at Crunch that years before, like in 2003, she told me when I put up a website, she said, "You're gonna have an opt-in, right?" And I was like, "A what in?" And she was like,
That's
"Oh,"
so Marie.
she pulled out a legal pad and showed me like what an opt-in was and how I would have an automated confirmation email, etc. Diagrammed it for me, and she's like, "And you have to have a freebie." And she's like, "And your blog, you're going to put a blog on this, right?" And it's like, "Well, it's 2009. Isn't it too late to have a blog?" And she's like, "Oh my God, no, you have to have a blog. You love to write, you of all people." So I put a blog on there and started building a list. She said, "Your list is your gold." I had no idea what that meant, but I did it anyway. For once in my life, I followed instructions and did it. And I didn't know to what end. I started writing while I was working in TV, started writing blog posts about anything I felt like, which is what I like to write. I was writing about Menudo videos from the 80s or stories about how my dad called his rain boots rubbers, and things that had nothing to do with my opt-in, which was 5 secrets to non-sucky copy.
There you
Like
go.
people would sign up for that, and then I wouldn't give them a single writing tip. I mean, I gave them the opt-in, but after
Yeah.
that, it was like, here's a story about my dad, and that sort of built me a following of people, small, but a following of people who thought they loved my copy. They were like, "We love your copy. Can you help us with our copy?" And Marie asked me to speak at her first live event, which was called Rich, Happy, and Hot Live. And it was 50 people in the Soho House Library. And she's like, "Will you speak about copywriting?" It's like, sure. I didn't know anything about that kind of copywriting. I was just
Yeah.
TV stuff, but I taught what I knew. I had no idea that it was two different things. And people started coming up to me at the end of it and saying, "I'm a realtor. Can you help me with my about page? I'm a coach. I don't know what to put on my website or in my emails." And I was like, "Yeah, I can help you with that." Because I knew I could write like a person, and most people don't have that ability to write like to write in a human way. So I knew
Yeah.
I'd be good at it. So I started taking those private clients. And so when I got let go, I was able to I was like, "Well, how am I going to make up this income?" I put up a services page and sent out an email to my little list saying, "I have these services for offer, and I can help you with your copy." And that started building more of a business. And that's how I ended up segueing into this weird, crazy, wonderful world, called the online space, or I just call it the space,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and working with those people. And over time I pivoted again, like from working one-on-one with people to creating and selling my own courses and really making a living from my emails, which is what I always wanted in the first place, like second to getting paid just to watch TV, where someone hands you a check. Like, good job watching all of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Keep it up. There's more where this came from. That was the dream. But number one dream. Number two is writing and getting paid for it. Just writing whatever I feel like and getting paid for it. And that's what I get to do with my emails. So that's not in such a nutshell how I got where I am today.
There are so many things that I love about this. First, I love that Marie is like the pocket BFF of like, girl, grow your list. I remember the first time somebody brought up a list to me, I literally thought they were talking about a to-do list. Like they said, "How big is your list?" And I was like, "Oh, it's really long. I got a
Oh,
lot I need to
miles
do."
long.
And so I love that. And I do believe that even today, like your email list is gold. Like
Hmm.
it is what will have you sink or swim. It's incredible. So it's beautiful to see the longevity in that.
Yeah.
One thing that I struck me as you were speaking, Laura, is that so many of my guests come on here and they tell these deeply ambitious stories, right? About
Hmm.
how I worked these crazy hours and I, chased this person down and I did these things. And you are not like that. And I
No.
really appreciate that because I know that there are listeners here. Talk to me a little bit about what you've learned about yourself in order to like own the fact that you're like, I call myself lazy. Like, I don't want to do that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I feel like there are two kinds of lazy, and I have both in equal measure, maybe. So there's good lazy and bad lazy. It's like good and bad fats,
Yeah.
right? Or cholesterol, like the avocado kind of lazy. And then, so the bad kind, which I would love to get over, but I never have, is basically resistance, like fear dressed in pajamas, where I just don't want to do the things that I have to do that involve risk, that are scary to me, like writing something where I don't know where it's going to start. I don't know how it's going to go, that blank page. Things that those are things that I will naturally procrastinate on and feel like, oh, I'm too lazy to do that. But really, I'm just terrified that I'm going to do it badly. And then the good kind of lazy is, for me, something I'm very comfortable with is the ability to relax, to have free time. I love free time. And I know a lot of people, especially women, are terrified not to be super busy. Like they feel ashamed of themselves if their calendar isn't crammed. And I feel the opposite. Though I tend not to measure my self worth in how hard I work. It's just not a measure for me. And I actually feel a little ashamed or embarrassed if I don't have a lot of free time. I'm like, oh, I'm managing my time so poorly. I shouldn't be wall to wall. Like, I feel embarrassed to say I'm too busy to
Yep.
do X or Y.
I'm the same way. My sister literally last night texted and she's like, we're having a baptism. I made this little doodle form. Please let me know what weekends you're available. And literally every single option we were available because we don't like having plans. Like we love having blank space
Oh,
in that way of like, my favorite days are days where I have nothing on the calendar. It doesn't mean I don't work. It means I'm free to do the work I want to do, which is like
yes.
the best.
Holy grail for me is a day
Yes.
with nothing scheduled. I mean, I started eliminating one-on-one clients, because I loved my work with them,
Yeah.
but I would see their appointments on the calendar and be like,
Constrained.
"Oh no, it's a client day." And so originally I was like, I'm going to take no appointments on Mondays or Fridays.
Yeah.
And I loved those days so much, where I would just sit on the couch and write what I felt like writing, write my emails, be in flow, all those things. And I started thinking like, "Oh no, it's Tuesday. Oh no, it's Wednesday. Oh no, it's Thursday." So I took like Tuesdays and Thursdays off the calendar too. And then it was like, "Oh no, it's Wednesday." That's when I raised my prices to like sticker shock level so that people would stop booking me. And it didn't really work. That's when I took Wednesdays off the calendar. It's like, no more clients. That's it.
I love that. I think it's powerful to talk about this side of the coin as well because
Yeah.
I do believe that busy is a badge of honor for so many people and
Yeah.
surely the busier you are, the more successful you are, but I love that we don't subscribe to that. Okay, so talk to me about this. So let's talk to the audience that is listening right now and they have an idea or a vision or this nudge or this whisper and they're like it's too late. Like the ship has sailed. I have missed it. I must just let this go. What would you say to them?
Yeah, well, I would say it's not too late. It's never too late. It might be too late to be, a professional ballerina if you're, 50, but otherwise, especially now when we have so many resources available to us, like so few gatekeepers, whatever you wanna do, you can do it and put it out there. But I grew up with 2 parents who I'm from late bloomer stock, slowpoke stock. The 2 parents who both pivoted in, especially then, for that time, very late in life. I mean, they were in their 40s, which was probably like 80 is now. And my dad went from being an industrial engineer for the airlines, where we got free travel, to becoming a psychoanalyst, where we got free feelings. So not the greatest trade-off for me, but he modeled for me like this, um, refusal to settle for work that was anything less than joyful and what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. It was his life's work. And he always said, I don't want to stop working. until I die. And he didn't. And my mom also, probably inspired by him, in her 40s, went from being like a musicologist, which is, I don't know what that is even, but she had a PhD in music, maybe taught music. Well, she worked in the recording industry before I was born, and to working in children's books. She discovered, like, took a course on finding your thing, and discovered in her 40s that she wanted to work in children's books. And she went into publishing as an intern. And imagine being, now let's say 60, because 40 back then was like 60 is the new 40, right? Imagine being 60 and starting over as an intern
Yeah.
and getting someone's coffee. And back then, getting called sweetheart and asked to do all the menial things because you're a woman and an intern. It's so bold, and just set a standard for me of, like, you have a relaxed timeline. You probably won't figure out what you want to do until later in life, or you will rewrite your career. And who knows, I might still do that again. But I feel like, it's very easy to feel behind,
Yeah.
especially now more than ever, because it's in our faces, on Instagram, everywhere on social media. We have like 20-year-olds who are billionaires selling lip gloss, and crypto bros who've switched to being AI bros or whatever they are, um, with their Ferraris, and they're, they dropped out of college and they're 20. It's very easy to feel like, oh, it's too late for me. I didn't get in the game early enough in the game, or early enough in my life. And I just want to say, you are not behind. You're only behind in comparison to somebody that you're looking at. So I like to stop looking at them
There you
generally
go.
when I'm starting to feel really anxious and behind. And I heard a great quote from someone. I think it was my friend Susie Moore, who I talked to you about earlier before we hit record. But I think she said something like, if you didn't see what anyone else was doing, how would you feel about where you are now? And it's a big thought. It's a good thought experiment. Like, are you really behind, or is it just in relation to everyone that you see on Instagram?
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful. It's really interesting because I was recently on a girls' trip with some very high leaders that you
Hmm.
probably know.
I saw it.
And
Yep.
at dinner, I asked them, I said, if you were not doing like what you were doing today and you could do anything, like money aside, what would you do?
Hmm.
And it was fascinating. Like one of my friends was like, I would be the best personal assistant that somebody could have. Another friend was like, I want to be a florist. Like I personally would love to be a birth photographer and a doula. Like I would love to be in the delivery room for everyone. One of my friends is giving birth today, and all I can think about is like, how is she doing? How is she feeling? What is going on? What is happening? And it's like wild because I'm with you. Like, it is never too late to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And I love the evolution of the human experience. Like, if we don't start inviting that in more, like, we are going to go through our lives with this like unfulfilled feeling that we can't shake. It's just crazy.
Yes. Yes. I would love to see you do that. Well, now you have your next, what your next chapter is, right?
Yes, yes.
And and
So
here's okay, go ahead.
I need to know about this. So you
Hmm.
mentioned earlier in the call, you said,
Yeah.
I loved writing this copy because it was really short and there wasn't a big blank page and all of that. But you just wrote a book. So this is two things. One, another reinvention, right?
Yeah.
Going from
Yeah.
copywriter to author. That's a
Hmm.
big, big shift.
Yeah.
And two, writing a book is like staring at 8 million blank pages and
Oh
writing a
God.
lot of words. Why did you decide to write your book? And what was
Hmm.
the process like for you?
I mean, I decided to write it because I always wanted to write a book. And, I knew it was a huge undertaking. That's probably what stopped me for so long. And I met up with somebody who I knew online for a while, met up with them. She came to New York, was like, hey, I want to come to your dance class with you. That's house class that I would go to. And so we were sitting on the floor stretching, and she's somebody who's very prolific and helps people write their books. And her name is Alexandra Franzen. And she's not on social media. And she said to me, so do you have a body of work? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I have a lot of emails that I've written. Like, I guess if you
Yep.
put those together, yeah, and blog posts and this and that. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And I think she might have said, "What about a book?" But of course, in my mind, I was already there. I was like, "My book. What about my book?" And I remember having the thought I started it in like, 2017, like, okay, I'm writing this thing. And I started writing stuff. And then I would be stop and start. Oh, yeah, I got to get back to my book. And then 2019, I remember having this thought, like, if a bus were bearing down on me in the middle of the street in New York, my last thought would probably be, before I die, before it's lights out, would probably be, I didn't write my book.
Mm,
And it's like, I've got to write my book. It was a calling. It was like, I always wanted to have something that was real, that I could put out there, that was in print with the spine, and that I could hand to somebody and say, here's what I wrote. So that's why I wrote the book. I forget what your next question was because I was
just
so long
what was
winded.
the process like
Oh, the
reinventing
process.
yourself as an
Yeah.
author? Like,
Yes.
that's a
Yes.
big shift.
Yeah, it is. Well, first of all, the process of writing it was very different from the things that I write, as you pointed out, and torturous once I knew what they had to be. I thought this was kind of permission to just write down my stories, but in longer form, the things I like to talk about in email, but in longer form and without a takeaway, without a call to action. I don't have to sell anything here. And then my editor, when I dumped all my stuff on her that I thought was awesome, said, where's the point of view here? Where's the voice? Where's what are you trying to say? Where's the theme? What is all this leading to? What are we to take away from this? And I was like, oh crap, I actually do have to. I don't have to put in like spoon-fed takeaways or bullet points or your next steps, but I do have to arc to some kind of meaning. And that was really, really hard
Yeah.
to go through these stories and think, why am I telling this? What is the point here? What do I want the reader to feel and take away from this? I don't want someone to read it and say, okay, that's a funny story. Why do you just tell me that? And so that process was really tough. And it involved a year of me pacing, watching Netflix, crying, considering giving back my advance.
Yes.
There was a long, really protracted period of torture, of self-loathing, of confidence crashing, of me saying, like, maybe I'm not meant to do this. Maybe I am just meant to write fun emails to people. So,
Okay, so this brings me to a beautiful point. Thank you for
mhm.
that. Because there is something really powerful that you talk about, which is the satisfying power of being you. And
Mm.
there's a chapter in your book, Deb Fishbone Likes This, where you talk about hate following your sixth grade bully on social media and you find her to be delightfully basic and hilariously reveal what she did that made you be so afraid to be disliked. And at the end of the chapter, you write this. You say, the key to creativity, business, art, self expression, any kind of success I value is to remind yourself that life is not sixth grade. In fact, it's the opposite. Standing out is where it's at. Samey and normal are the kiss of death, and only the weird survive. And once you're a grown up, one person disliking you can't destroy you unless they sue you, which is why I'd never use Deb Fishbone's real name. Okay, let's unpack this. We actually had a lot of discussions with on my girls' trip about some people who are extremely sensitive or they just want everyone to like them.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone like that? Because if you are going out there and starting a business or you got the side hustle or you're putting yourself out there, or you're pivoting, there are going to be people who don't like it and don't like you. Let's talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah, as we've both found out.
Yes.
Um, and here's the thing, I am really sensitive to being disliked. I still am. It still stings. Like
Yep.
that episode of 6th grade where Deb Fishbone, stole my best friend and made my life hell by kicking me out of my friend group and by disliking me. I mean, it really did destroy me and it left a deep scar. So if I hear somebody doesn't like me or if someone says something mean to me, it stings. I still feel it and I don't like it. But so the key for me is all about reminding myself that it is okay for someone to dislike you. It doesn't it unless we're in 6th grade where it can destroy your life. It doesn't destroy your life. And I always think about this, like for every brand, song, movie, TV show, work of art. person you follow that you love, there is somebody out there, or maybe many people, who will say, not for me, or, oh my God, the worst. And that doesn't mean that that thing or person that you love is any less great. It doesn't mean that they should go and retool themselves. I mean, I hated the show This Is Us. Could not get into it for the life of me. I kept trying. It's like, maybe I have a chip missing. Everybody says this is the best show ever. They're like crying over it. They can't wait for the next season. What's wrong with me? I was like, actually, the show sucks. And I would openly say that. It doesn't mean, because I thought the show sucked, does not mean that This Is Us, like the writers had to go back into the writer's room and retool it. I know that you like truffle fries. You mentioned them in your book.
Yes.
I think truffle oil is the devil. I think it's the most
Stop.
disgusting thing
This interview
on earth.
ends right now. Just kidding. It's amazing though, Laura, because someone had said something similar to me of like, even the people who you put on a pedestal or who you think like they have done no wrong,
Yeah.
go read their book reviews. Go read
Mm-hmm.
their, the feedback people give. And it was so fascinating because I think we all have those people who were like, they are perfect. They have done no
Yes.
wrong. And then you go and you sort down to the 1-star reviews and you're like, how did somebody not love this book? It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And I think the most powerful piece that you said there is they do not need to go retool themselves or their work
Yeah.
because of this feedback. How has this looked for you in your life in terms of learning how to just stand wholly in who you are and either allow feedback or criticism to guide your next steps or to fall away? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I don't let criticism define my next steps. I'm sometimes inclined to, like the reactive side of me. If somebody writes me an email saying, like replies to one of my emails saying like, I wish you hadn't used this word. Or like, this really confused me. I think you didn't state it well. My first reaction is to like hit reply and start defending myself, and why I made that choice, or apologize, or like panic. I should change everything. And then I have to remind myself, it is okay. Like that person is looking for some way to be offended, or or trying to be they think they're really valuable and helpful by telling me this. And I consider the source. I mean, if it
Yeah.
is, sometimes criticism is valid, and I might take it in and rethink something, but I don't allow it to devalue me and make me feel like I am less worthy as a person. And I do suck. This person's right. This one person is right. I
Right.
suck. Yeah.
Right. Isn't that wild how we do that? Like it's
Yeah.
just and usually it is someone who has no context or view into your actual life. They just see that
Right.
one piece of work. It's so fascinating, isn't it? It's wild.
Yeah. It is.
So let's talk about tough titties. I like can't say that title without like smiling and like blushing slightly. Tough titties is the title of your new book. What is inside of the book? Why this title? And how are you going to say it to someone you're sitting next to on the plane when you tell them I am an author and my book is called Tough Titties? Do you feel good
That's
about that?
exactly how I'm going to say it. First
Love
of
it.
all, I'm going to say it a little louder. I'm going to
Yeah.
really explode the T's. Tough titties. Um, and the subtitle on living your best life when you're the effing worst. So the title came from something that I say all the time. Like I found myself, I had no idea what this book was going to be called, or even
Yeah.
how it was going to be shaped. Like, what is the theme of this book? It's my
Yeah.
stories of being a dork, misfit, growing up in New York, and then late blooming into this unusual life and career. And originally, like my working title, but I knew this wasn't it, was New Dork City. And
Mm.
then one day I found myself saying tough titties, and I was like, I say that all the time. A, because I'm 12, um, and B, it's sort of in response to usually someone who expresses like, oh, so and so wants you to do this, or I think you should do that. It would be better if you did it this way. And my response to that is, yeah, well, tough titties. I'm not going to. It is something that I say to most of the supposed tos in life, because I'm
Yes.
not a supposed to person. I have trouble complying with most of the supposed tos. I'm not a box checker. Most people I know especially women, find themselves trapped by their need to check all the boxes in life. Like, I'm doing everything right, I'm following instructions. And I have always had the opposite reaction. Like, ugh, I don't want to do that. I can't because I don't want to.
Yep.
And so that includes, most of adulting, driving a car. I don't drive. I have not learned to roast a chicken. I can't cook at all. And I don't have kids. And that was a big supposed to that I decided to forego, which was a tough one. But tough titties.
Yeah.
So that is, so the stories really do thematically connect in that sense that, like I've said, they are all about saying tough titties to some sort of thing that you're supposed to do, some timeline you're supposed to follow, some box you're supposed to check. And so that's where the title comes from. That's what it's about.
Where can everybody find out more about you, get their hands on your book, and explore more of your body of work that you now have?
I heard explore more of your body. And I was like, tough titties will allow that. There is a so-called titular chapter in it. That is about titties. So they can come to, first of all, find me at talkingshrimp.com. That is my digital home. And toughtittiesbook.com is where to come find the book. It's actually a redirect. It's a page of talkingshrimp.com. But I have freebies there also that your audience will love, and for copywriting, for email writing. And then the book is at toughtitties.com. And then I'm on Instagram. I am at Laura Belgray.
I love it.
And
You don't make anything
that's
simple, do you?
I
I
know
love that about you.
nothing aligns. I have
We
like
don't
so many
follow the
handles.
rules, and
No.
that is what we love. Oh, Laura, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Congratulations on your book, and I'm so excited for people to learn more about you in those pages.
Thank you so much, Jenna. This was fantastic. I loved every second of it.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Gold Digger Podcast. I'm so happy you're here. And to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, make sure you're subscribed to the show. And if you loved today's episode, which I hope you did, check out this one next. I think you're going to love this video too. So one of the things that was interesting about UTMs is that we as a team had to buy into it because we're using links all over the place on all the platforms. And so I really had to explain the importance to my team and say, we need to make sure that we dial this in so that anytime we're sharing a link, it is linked to the specific